Good evening. Can you hear me okay? Yes. All righty. Well, welcome to this semester's first reading in our Visting Writers Series. Tonight we welcome Nebraska poet Marjorie Saiser. Marjorie Saiser was named Distinguished Artist in Poetry by the Nebraska Arts Council in 2009. Her work, published in Prairie Schooner, Rattle, Field, Crab Orchard Review, Burnt District, Dos Pasos Review, Cimarron Review, Smarty Pace, Nimrod, Chattahoochee Review, and other journals can be found at poetmarge.com and in the archives of Garrison Keillor's Writer's Almanac. Her most recent works are Losing the Ring in the River, University of New Mexico Press, 2013. Rooms, published by Pudding House Publications in 2010, and Beside You at the Stoplight, the Backwaters Press of 2010, winner of the Little Blue Stem Award. She has received several Nebraska Book Awards, as well as an Academy of American Poets Award. Please help me welcome Marge Saiser.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, each and every one, for coming. One thing that a poet can do is to absolutely tell the truth in every line of their poem. And I have poems like that. But another thing that you can do is to invent a character, invent a persona, and write in that persona's voice. And I've found that that has really been fun as a new wrinkle for me. So my book, Losing the Ring in the River, has three masks or personas, characters, and I'll read a little bit from each section. The first persona is Clara, who was a farm wife on the Great Plains in the early 1900s. On a hot day, they would be working in the field, Clara as well as her husband Luke, and one way to cool off would be, after the work was done, to go for a swim in the river. And Luke thought it was great fun to hold his wife's head underwater because she's terrified of water. So she got so scared and she's clawing and she lost her wedding ring. So this is the next morning and she's thinking about that. Losing the ring in the river. Frying eggs in bacon fat this morning, I think about it. I don't like to think about it. The river filling my mouth and throat, my hands clawing the water, clawing his arm. He is mad about that, the scratches on his arm. And he is mad about the ring. Said he will never buy me another. Said I have a ring, if I can find it, on the bottom of the Niobrara. In part of my mind, I think it was not my fault. He shouldn't have been holding my head down and laughing. But he does that sort of thing. It was supposed to be fun, cooling off in the river after a hot day in the field. Nothing can make him sorry, not the least bit. I baste the eggs, blindfolding them the way he likes, splashing bacon grease over them with my mother's old spatula. Brown flecks catch and hold on the yolks. Maybe, with time, he'll come to be more loving and kind. Well, he didn't necessarily become more loving and kind. Had a very bad temper. So here is Clara talking about that violence that she lived with. I can't forget how Luke smashed the hollyhocks, hit the pink and yellow ears of flowers with his crowbar, beat on the pump, the porch, beat the house, stucco falling off like pieces of crackers. He leaped down the cellar steps, broke jars, gallons of pickles, and applesauce. If I could have shut him in, trapped him there, rolled something heavy onto the cellar door, and escaped. But he was already in the kitchen, wrecking flour and sugar, sweeping plates to the floor. He beat the mattress, ripped it. He was roaring. I ran to the living room where the canary was. Luke beat the metal of the bed. He must shiver hands and arms. He must make old evil hands hurt. They must be numb. I ran to the road, the cage bumping my ribs. Behind me was the noise of an anvil, hammered, hammered, hammered. I opened the cage, but the canary was afraid, did not fly. I held it, small, warm, struggling. I drew out my hand, a bird, threw it, a fist, into the sky. So Clara feels trapped, like this spider that she's caught. Why I don't crush the spider. Don, how's this sound? Why I don't crush the spider. Maybe it's the way all those legs shuffle and work. Maybe it's the way she makes it partway up the side of the tub, slides down, partway up, slides down. Maybe it's because she's in the wrong place at the wrong time, doesn't fit in, doesn't know shit from Shinola, talks too much, though she's been told, shut up. I take a clean jar and place it over, slide a postcard carefully under. The spider scrambles. She has no idea where I lift her to or what I put her down upon. It's her job to wait it out. The slow blue, then black of evening. She doesn't dream of what she doesn't have, does she? In the morning, some of us get our second chances, get to fling out, uncaught, into oceans of grass. And she takes some blame, too, for the trouble in the marriage. When I have hurt him as much as I can. When I have fingered the slingshot lodged for so long in my pocket. When I have picked up a stone he beleaguered has dropped in passing. When I have aimed at the white patch of skin between his pale blue eyes. When I have pulled back and let loose. When my stone, sharp-cornered as a word, sinks in and in, when its burn equals some of the wounds I carry. Then, as did our mothers and fathers, he will lie down lonely, and I will lie down lonely, touching through the blanket, distance enough, distance enough. She also has a lot of fun. They're always in competition with Clara, even when playing cards. So this poem is called Playing My Cards, and she's talking about playing hearts. And in playing hearts, if you know that game, you either want to get as few hearts as you can, they'll count against you, or if possible, you get them all, and then you win. But it doesn't start off with the card game. It starts off, she's in the garden, there's a snake which she kills with her hoe. playing my cards. The head of the snake sways, its body coils in the garden, its rattles shake out a noise. I raise my hoe high, the tongue of the snake flickers, and I strike. Down comes my blade like a judgment. The jaws of the snake, tailless, open and close. Something stays me, its small black eye. The long body whips in the row of onions, whips slower, slower. I contemplate the cards I've been dealt. The conversation flows on. I see a way if I can get rid of 3 losers. Just 3. Just 2. Just this one more trick past the unsuspecting Luke, who is so intent on winning. Ah, the jack. That does it. No stopping me now. Swiftly, the ace, king, queen, and 10. To all you holding cards around this table, what exactly sits here among you? Who exactly I will become? None of us has any idea. Well, Clara doesn't get along with one of her daughters. That's Emma. They just rub each other the wrong way. And they have a huge argument while they are canning tomatoes at midnight in the hot kitchen. It helps to can them at night, helps a little bit. It's not quite as hot. Plus, in the daytime, they've got all this other farm work to do. But Emma she's out of there. She's gonna leave. My daughter leaving. Emma stuffed her clothes into a box and put it into the old Ford Luke had given her. This was for real. She shifted into reverse and started to back up. Then she saw me standing next to her car, and she stuck her arm out the window. I grabbed it and kissed her palm, my old foolish face filling her hand. That's the kind of thing I think she hates. We'd had an argument, and after I thought it was over, we'd start it up again. All it takes is a word or a sigh, a heave-ho of the body. We were canning tomatoes. It was midnight. That's the way we did things. I was filling jars, and she was putting the lids on. I had to stand there in that steamy kitchen and take it, dipping those slimy tomatoes out of the kettle and into the jars, while she told me every mistake I ever made. I wanted to fling hot tomatoes at all the walls. My hands went on filling jars, and hers went on wiping my spills off the rims and screwing the lids on. She screwed those lids very tight, all the while enumerating. The smell of the skin of her hand, the living warmth of it. The car kept rolling. I took a step to keep up, and then I let go. Well, the last one I'll read for Clara is when she is old, she's alone, she's very poor, it's winter, she's got a little coal left. She's made a very important decision. She is going to be a writer. But first she makes herself a dress. Deciding to write. Stove, whose maw I open and feed, coal I have carried from the shed. This house Luke thought good enough. These worn blue flowers of linoleum I step on. Nothing will stop me. Fat body in this dress I made from a pattern I laid piece by piece onto what cotton I had. Smoothed, pinned, cut, and sewed. I pull it over my head, and then my old cardigan for warmth. I build this fire, drop in the last chunk. I will use up the coal, every crumb. I take my tablet and pen to the same table where I cut the garment, the dress, a color not brown. Let me lay words on paper. Let the grit gather on the floors. So then, in the next section, it is Clara's daughter who is speaking. It's Emma, the one who left, and she tells what her side of it, what it was like leaving, in a poem called Retina. And you know how whatever you're looking at right now, if you're looking at me, I'm looking at you, on the back of the eye, that image is upside down, and she's thinking about that because as her mother's leaving, as she's leaving, her mother is standing in the driveway. She knows that that image of her mother is upside down on the back of her eye. Retina. My life moves on the retina upside down. This night in spring, Arcturus a pinpoint on the curve of a small black curtain. If I were anywhere instead of here on the driveway, running once more away from home, if I were at the river, cranes would land in the small theater of the retina, flap in the near dark, and find a place to settle. But here is the image of my mother, inverted, diminished, windows of her house behind her, her shoulders round, arms hanging, mouth awry, cheeks wet. What will I make of this, of anything? The fine black lines of the feet of the cranes dance upside down in the globe of the eye. My mother recedes, student of broken things. For me, the windshield and the dash, my oncoming, implacable road. And Emma falls in love. Their first date is in the wintertime. They're sledding, they're sliding down the bank and then out onto the frozen river. Source. We slid down the snow of the riverbank on a big piece of cardboard, the cardboard halting at the bottom, and our bodies going on forward to sprawl on the ice. Too old for play, but we played. Slid on our bellies, the frozen river under us. Your hand in your glove, holding my hand in my glove. We moved further in this world. Found the day-by-day cafe. Entered, our glasses fogging over. We said yes to the soup, and when the young cook in a long skirt set two in front of us, the steam rose, curling over on itself. Sorcerer, priestess, she moved her hands above the bowls, rolling dried herbs between her palms. This is how it began, tiny pieces falling into yours and into mine. But their relationship went very sour. And I'll skip some of that, but here is Emma writing about it didn't work out. She says, I could have named it love, that white apron I tied over my red dress, those black strappy heels I moved around in, the crust I filled with apples and slid into the oven. I could have named it E for effort. I could have named them good enough, my young legs, going nowhere under their skim of skirt. My fingers curled around each ear of corn, before the drop into the steaming pot. Perhaps it names itself devotion. I called you when the meal was ready. You have to admit that. You have to give me this much. White plates graced the tabletop. Brown tea floated cubes of ice. Each fork lay in place beside its shiny knife. Eventually, you wanted a bender on your own like the old days. You may have been thinking Pabst, Bud, Chaser, half a pack of smokes, clean t-shirt, might rain. I may have been thinking left like baggage, sauce for the goose, sauce for the gander. I took the pickup and drove to Tiny's where I thought you would eventually show up. I parked, sat outside, drove back in the storm. I didn't make it up the hill, slid off into the ditch, and sat thinking in tune with the rain on the roof, lightning showing the hood and the cattle at the fence. Eventually, I slogged barefoot in the downpour toward the farmhouse, a high heel in each hand. Well, let's see. It's all pretty sad. I'll go to where she's done. She's going to go on and make something of her life. Love, I'm done. We all know that feeling, or some of us know that feeling, but you get over it. Love, I'm done with you. Love, here's the deal. Last night I went to the river, the sun was barely gone, and long strings of cranes came from the fields, wavering toward me where I stood on the bridge. Long knotted strings, and the trilling in all their throats. Love, I'm going to pull on my heavy boots, search my topographical instruments, put my fat finger on the map where I intend to take myself. May those boots lead. May they tramp, may they persevere, cracked, caked, never relent. I will find a house in the snow, will open the door. There will be thousands and thousands of candles. The third section is in the voice of Emma's daughter, which will be Clara's granddaughter, and her voice is more sassy. Here's her poem about a snake. She says, "Let me be one. Let me be the first snake of spring. Let me ride immodest. Let me be a long white underbelly against the warm wrist of the garden. Circle what can be circled. Be hard, be small, be cold. Let me not care. Let the proper wish me away. Let me find their houses, their stairways in the sun, their furrows, their lettuces. Let me flick my tongue into the air of the world which does not love me, which took my place, which praises emptiness, which would step and stomp with heavy brown boots, which with any tool at hand would be glad to break the quick coils of my beautiful spine." You know how sometimes the moon shows up in the daytime sky? Here Liz is addressing that moon, to the moon in the morning. Moon in the morning, chunk of ice melting. Moon wearing no sandals, and half your dress gone too. Come, breakfast with me. Dance this mimosa down your throat in my garden of hollyhocks. No, don't come. Don't bother. You're like any other Puritan piece of rock, turning your back when I show up in a towel to lie in my hammock. Oh, icy moon of decency. Never lived on the plains in the summertime. Find your own long-stemmed champagne. I'll outlast you, honey. Outlast August and a stinky neighborhood. Think I'll pay through the nose for my nakedness? See if I care. Ah, but Liebchen, come closer, warm up, melt, you little ice chip, between my heavy breasts. But Liz is also serious. She thinks about the larger world, about women who don't have her luck and her freedom, don't live in her country. She starts off, she's talking about her father and how he could build fire. I have nothing to say about fire, except my father could build one. I saw his hands as he moved logs into place. His hands I would know anywhere. I have nothing to say about hands, except his were old and good. I have nothing to say about good, except that it is connected with lucky. They are right and left hands, good and lucky. But good does not cause lucky. I could say something about guilt, because my sister on some other side of the world, to the left or right of lucky, is biting her lip, tasting blood. She may be lying on a blanket, thinking of pain. I have nothing to say, because I have said it, and am lucky, undeserving. I, who did not earn, did not choose, did not merit. I have nothing to say, and I have time to say it, and people to listen. I have everything. Here she is thinking back to when she was a kid and went skinny dipping with the neighbor boys. Skinny dipping with the neighbor boys. Already I had fractured the rule about home at sundown. So I stowed my bra inside a cedar, needles pricking my sweaty skin. I laid the panties warm to the hand on a branch. I heard the boys laughing, cavorting in the middle of the river. Fish belly girl, ready to wade and to dive. Small town soul, afraid, but going on anyway. Like everybody, trying to be what the books say. Holding the head high, but not too high. Stepping out on the particular rocks we've been given. Give the fish belly girl a moment before the cold current. Give her a moment under the crescent moon, her powerful arms out to the night. There is this, and there is more. She's always looking for that more. And here she is, she's found love, and she and her love are watching the cranes. Cranes have come up several times in the book. What happens, not only with cranes, but with moon and snakes, is that each woman has some poem about it, some experience with one of those, and then the daughter or granddaughter have their take on something. And so here's Liz and the cranes. They're in a blind at night, looking out little peepholes at the cranes. You and I, the cranes, the river. The cranes were silhouettes that night, thousands lowering in long strings to land in the shallow river. We stood at peepholes in a shed on the bank, silent, watching. And I began to wish someone could see us, witness us, you and I, durable in our heavy coats and scarves, looking out into darkness. We were not jaded then. Nothing remarkable happened for an hour. No talking. We didn't want to spook the cranes, standing on their sandbars, trilling their all-night song. Then you pointed toward a peephole in the western wall, turned my shoulders, mouthed a word, one word. Vapor rose from your mouth. Moon, you said. We looked at it together, a thin white curved tusk, a filament, a lost string, a moon on its back. At a small window, we looked at the moon together. Well, what I thought I would do, I'll read the last poem in the book, which is where Liz is waiting for the birth of her child as the generations go on. And then I thought if people had questions, or I know that some people have read this book and might want to talk about a certain poem, or I would read a poem that people wanted. So we'll do that. But this is the last poem where Liz is pregnant with her child. And she's talking to the child. Take, eat. This is my body. Take, eat. This is my body. Now when you are forming, cell by cell, small crusts, the fine chain of your spine, lashes, eyelid, brow, fingers curling, anthers of exotic flowers. Take, eat. This is the way I love you. Unseen earwig, growing. I will be blue-white milk at your mouth. I will be a shadow on a building, the low sun casting a shape behind me as I go on. So, questions? You think I was too hard on Luke or something? I could read the poem where she just loves Luke. I'll do that.
How did you say, I want to write a book of poems, or did it develop as the poems went and you knew it was going to be all together?
Well, that's a good question, Nancy, because I'm the kind of person that, and my husband would attest to this, it has to kind of evolve, it has to come organically, rather than saying, okay, I'm going to do this, here's my outline, you know. So what I had done, and with my previous books, sort of that way too, you write and you don't necessarily say, okay, I'm going to write a poem about cranes, or I'm going to write a poem about this or that. But you as you're writing daily, I hope, I'm saying that for myself too, I hope I will do my work and write daily. You begin then to have a pile. I think of it as clay. You're gathering. So then you have this, and it's pretty shapeless, but as you look at it, then I began to see where this could be a story. This could be a story. Because of the difference in the voices, and because, like Clara farmed with mules, you know, so there's time, there's an arc of time, and so when I started then to pull it into a shape, that was very exciting because I could kind of, it's something like painting when you start off and you're getting these areas of color, but then it begins to look like something. Then comes the work of trying to make it what it seems it wants to be. And I did have help with that. My writing groups that I'm in, very helpful, just to listen. Also, when they are writing and they are reading what they're writing, that's exciting and it feeds that creativity. So, you're motivated to keep working on it. Anybody else working on persona? Or, it's very freeing because, and I bet some of you write fiction too, write novels. Well, my strength, or my interest at least, is in poems. But I also want to tell a story. So this is perfect for me, because poems are what I write and what I love to write, and what I love to revise and tinker with them. And then I could tinker with them and make them 3 characters and make a story, sort of. And each poem then would be like a chapter in a novel, but it would be condensed and boiled down. And a lot of things left out, but you have to kind of leap and make some leaps to connect them. Even if you're writing a fiction, even if you're writing a novel, I bet if I looked in your novel, you don't tell everything either, because the reader likes to have to reach or leap for the meaning of it. How many people in the room write prose? How many write poetry? Okay. Gosh, I thought everybody in here was a poet. Sorry. They just don't want to admit it, maybe. But thanks for that question, Nancy.
Of course, I have another one, sorry. You told my students, I've never heard it put this way, I've asked writers before what keeps them writing, and you said if you have a truck driving job, you go to your and that means so much. Could you embellish on that a little bit?
Yeah, that was a very helpful idea for me to think. Okay, if your job is a truck driver, you go to work and you drive that truck. If your job is a writer, then you can't say, well, I don't really feel like it. Well, you can, and we do, but there's no such thing as truck driver block, I don't think. So it kind of takes away your excuse. Now, I'm saying this, but I have to admit that I slough off. I want to get better at that. Sometimes I'll go and really write every day.
Do you have any personal connection with the characters in your book?
Yes, the question is about personal connection to my characters, and I think that in my friends that write novels, I see this with them too. They have a personal connection with their characters, some kind of a personal connection, and often it's with our family, and it's experiences that have happened to us. So everything in this book is true, but it's not factual. In other words, it has to feel true emotionally, it has to feel true to my experience or someone close to me or that I know about, and then I feel free to jump off into fiction. Now, I wrote poems, for instance, about my grandmother. There's a poem, Potato Soup, and I was making potato soup and I just felt like, oh, this is what my grandmother felt like when she was peeling those and cutting those and cooking that milk and butter and potatoes and so on. And so that kind of a connection, and then she didn't leave me journals, you know, to go on, but you become a fiction writer, and so that I read that skinny dipping poem. I would have to tell you that my friend Lucy, we give each other writing assignments sometimes, and then we will do our best to dodge the assignment and write something else, but that's part of the fun of it, I guess, attention. But anyhow, her assignment was write about something that you never did. Okay, I have to admit, I never did skinny dipping. But that's the wonderful thing about being a writer, is you get to live twice. That's the saying anyway. You get to live twice, because then, you know, you can inhabit that character for that time. I don't know if that's kind of what you were asking about. So do you have characters that you brought from real life?
Yeah.
Because it makes them more real, I think. Even if they're fantasy characters, like I wrote some science fiction, really enjoyed it, fantasy. It had to feel real in some way, that character to me. And I think of Willa Cather. She knew Annie. I want to say Annie Pavelka. I think that was the name. It was a real person. If you go to Red Cloud, there is a photograph in one of those buildings dedicated to, you know, Cather characters. There's a photograph of the real Annie. But Cather jumped off into fiction. She took that character that she knew, and she made Antonia from it. And so there are lots of precedents for starting with something real and then manufacturing a life for them.
I felt like your inspiration was for the voices of anguish, and made me think about was our ancestors really, you know, was visible, and which I never really wanted to think about. And you gave voice though to those, and understanding to that suffering, and it was hard to take, but it did give some appreciation for it.
Yeah, I want to write about 50 really happy poems. But that anguish, I think I really felt that for my character Clara, because she was trapped just like that spider. There was nothing she could do to really better her life, except her spirit. Like she would dance, I make her dance, across the farmyard carrying a pail of milk to the bucket calf, you know. I make her like to move. So she had to have some things where she didn't feel trapped.
You have a poem at the very beginning. It's one of Clara, and I know it's one of Spencer's favorites. It reminds him of his grandfather. I would love it if you would read it. And I do not know the title of it, but Clara is feeding, I believe, carrots to mules.
Yeah, I study Luke. Yeah, she's feeding carrots to the mules, and so she's in the stall, and there's a mule on each side of her, and she's got the carrots to feed them. She enjoys that, the bodies of those mules and the strength of them. Luke doesn't want her to spoil them. They're not pets. I study Luke. I study Luke while he harnesses the mules. He says, a mule is ugly as a mud fence. But I notice he's soft on them too. Although I've seen him hit Jocko with a board, Jocko is more stubborn than Blackie. Luke caught me between them in the stall their muzzles soft as gray velvet, caught me with half a carrot in each hand. Says he won't let me spoil them. Still, I like to hear the crunch and pop of the carrot, like to feel Jocko's ears, his warm breath. Luke admires construction and destruction, wants whatever is heavy, whatever resists. When he breaks up the old foundation, when he swings the sledgehammer, his body rejoices, one shudder per blow. I watch him hold his bread and place his mouth on it and bite. His hair will whiten, outer layer first, and remain dark underneath, where I'll run my fingers and grab a handful. I gather facts about Luke. I know the back of his neck, brown skin with creases, a mosaic I muse on when I follow him across the yard to the barn. His shirt shows his sweat, and when the sweat dries, it leaves a thin white line of salt in the fabric across his back. This, I believe, is art.
Somebody had a hand. There's a poem that kind of touched me too. If you would read it, please, because I'd like to hear it in your words. I tell myself a story.
Okay, I tell myself a story is when Clara has decided to be a writer, and one thing about being a writer is you can redo, like you can kind of like rewrite history. She's had a lot of hard stuff in her life, but she tells herself this story. She writes it down, and then later in the book, I didn't read the one, but her daughter would like to read what her mother wrote, but it's destroyed when the house is cleaned up, so she never knows. Here's Clara. I tell myself a story. The rocker creaks, California, California. Look, the mighty hen struts the yard. My children sit around the table, their faces bright cups in a row. My beefsteak tomatoes sliced, my green snap peas, my gravy bowl passed hand to hand. A fence rings the house, red barn, black and white cows loafing, white bags of breath above their noses. I pull weeds, I pick cucumbers hidden in the shade of big heart leaves. I wash the dirt off my hands in a bubbling aquifer, hold water in my palms and bring it to my face, splash it, cold as aurora borealis, on my neck, my arms. Eddie, alive and well, carries a pail of milk to the house, his ear flaps up, jaunty in his denim jacket, jaunty in his 8-buckle overshoes. A brown loaf on the breadboard, silver spoons in the china cabinet, in the cellar, applesauce like nectar in jars. So she's bringing her one of her sons died. It's always such a heartbreak for her. She's bringing him back. He's walking across jaunty in his overshoes and chore mittens. So she's finding some joy in that kind of thing. And the California is a sound that the rocker makes, and she enjoys that by herself, alone. It's getting dark, and she has that for company.
I was just gonna ask if is poetry something you've always liked to do, like ever since you were younger, or is it something you just kind of started in your older age, middle age, or something?
Old.
Not what I meant. But
I know. No, that's a good question. When did I get started in the poetry? Well, In elementary school, I had a teacher who had us write stories. Her name was Adine Fisher, and I've written poems for her. And she valued the fact that the story didn't go on and on. Now, a fourth grader and a fifth grader, we wanted our stories to be 20 pages long. And she valued that. She said, well, why don't you try and see if you can get it at the bottom of this page, that it would come to a close. I don't know, maybe she didn't want to read them or something. But she did read them, and she was great because she didn't say, do this, do this, do this. She just said, see if you can shorten it up. So I liked writing for her because she read it and she liked it. And another thing that I think was really important in my life was I didn't have any teachers who took a poem and beat it to death and said, okay, now what does this semicolon mean? And I feel lucky about that. We read them, but we just enjoyed them. So fiction I wrote, stories I wrote, but then, in my 30s, I was teaching school, and I had the state poet come and read poems or write poetry with my students, so you could sign up for that. And I got started. And so then I took his classes, Bill Clepcorn. I took his classes, and then I got a master's in creative writing and English at the university. I wouldn't have done that if I hadn't got started on the poetry. So, always enjoyed words. I grew up in a cafe. People told stories. They made things into a story. If they broke down, if the pickup broke down or something, you could make it into a story. And I think that's part of it. But I like my poems then to have an element of story in them. And I started, in answer to your question, probably that would be in my 30s, to really say, okay, this I like, this I'm going to study. And I'm still studying it. I'm still going across the country to a week-long workshop with a poet whose work I admire. And, say, what can I learn here? So, thank you for your questions. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Marge. It was a wonderful reading. All right, her husband Don is over there selling some of her books, and if you would like, I believe Marge will be over there as well to sign them for you. All right. Thank you very much for coming tonight, for helping us celebrate the first writer of the 3-part series of Fall 2013. I look forward to seeing you on October 23rd. Matt Mason will be here reading from his book, The Baby That Ate Cincinnati. There you go. Thank you.
Keep cool.